This
Charlie, just
conference will now be recorded.
Sorry, Eric, I pushed the button. Go ahead.
never mind.
Okay. So thank you for joining us today. The When Layer 1 Gremlins Rear Their Ugly Head. This is going to be a discussion on how do issues with Layer 1 actually affect your network and your signal, and how to best correct them. Today we have Eric Williams. You've been hearing him talk a little bit so far. Eric's been with S&S Solutions coming up on 4 years now. He's our territory sales manager up in the Northwest. And due to his extensive experience in the industry, he is also one of our trainers on products and on technology. Before coming to S&S, he worked for Ericsson as both a quality assurance manager and ultimately as a product management manager. Overall, he has 15 plus years of experience in the industry. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to fiber optics and to network design, along with our transport technologies, which he will be talking a little bit about today, along with the fiber technologies. So without further delay, I turn it over to Eric.
Hey, thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it. So, guys, this is a little bit of I kind of was going with a holiday theme. One of my favorite holiday movies, the Gremlins. If you guys are children of the 80s or 90s, you probably remember that one. So just kind of a little bit of a take on that. But one of the areas that we see a lot and is both the differentiation between our layer 1 technicians and then our layer 2, layer 3 kind of CO network engineers. And there's a somewhat, I see a convergence of those where there used to be very separated in their roles. Now I think that it's really important that both of those roles really have an understanding of how the technologies work for them and what they're doing and how they impact one another. So I just kind of wanted to take a little bit of time this morning and highlight some of Exfo's test and measure equipment. We're starting out here with just an Ethernet test, as you can see on my screen that I'm sharing. And wanted to run this BERT test through this little box of Gremlins that I've created here, which is just one of our PLP DTC6s that I've run a bunch of different splices and fiber. We've got, you can tell that I'm going to say I intentionally left the workmanship pretty low. I've got some pretty nasty macro bends, some not very good splices, and some dirty connectors here. And the one thing that I'm lacking in this scenario is distance. And distance is really one of the biggest culprits that we have to really think about when we're looking at loss budgets and data rates and what have you. And one of the things I wanted to highlight, right now, I'm working on a FTBX 88200, which is Exfo's multi-protocol tester. We have a number of applications that we can utilize with a multi-protocol tester, various different transport technologies. Right now, it seems like the focus is on Ethernet, as we're moving mainly to carrier Ethernet. The software that comes with this module, or the software options, we can do a full Y.1564 test, which will take a snapshot of latency and throughput, frame loss, those sorts of specifications. But for the purposes of this presentation, I'm just going to run basically a bit error rate test, and that gives us some good information about how data is crossing our network. And for this particular purpose, my network is this little box of Gremlins here, and given that I have a limited amount of fiber that I can get in here versus an outside plant scenario, I'm gonna have to do some actual manipulation here to cause some of the errors that we regularly see. And then also, it plays a part on the optics that I'm using. I tried to get at the lowest 1.5K optic that I could find to limit this a little bit, but the optics that you're using the length and the amount of outside plant that you're dealing with, and of course how your loss budget plays into that, are all going to be ingredients to how the network is performing. And one thing that I've tried to highlight always is I'm going to move over to my bird test here so you guys can see. And if there's any questions that comes up during this or any comments, just throw them in the chat box. We'll respond to them that way if you don't want to speak out directly. But right now on this bird test, I'm just set up at 100 meg optical. And we can see that I currently have link. This is a bidirectional link, so I'm using 2 fibers. And right now, you can see my receive power, neg dB. Down here in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, if you can kind of see my cursor, you can see some information that the BERT test gives us. Port 1 at 100 meg optical. You can see that I currently have link up, so I'm actually connected to a max 800 on the far end there, and that's looped. And here's my loss and indicating that I have the laser on and what have you. So I've set up this Etherbird test with a basic pattern, nothing crazy, but we're just gonna get started here and take a look at right now. Everything's looking pretty good, not too bad here. But this is the kind of the first fault, and the area that I found that was easiest is right here in this location. Pull out my handy fiber pick to look. I got a pretty nasty macro bend that I've intentionally put into the case here. And even looking down on the screen here at my link and my lower level, I can just give this guy a little bit of pressure, and immediately you can see that I am incurring a pattern loss, and you can see that link loss goes way up really quickly, all the way. And this is only at 100 meg through our data rate. Just by having a really tight macro bend here, coupled with these poor splices and some kind of poor fiber management in the case, it's pretty easy to get a loss of signal and loss of pattern just with these minor, what I would call layer 1 gremlins. In a moment, I'll throw a red light on this case, and we'll take a look at all of the kind of high loss portions that just come basically from poor workmanship and poor fiber management in the case. And like I said, I just want to highlight these things to you guys, because I think a lot of times we get lost in the silo of our particular job and think, well, if it's good enough, if I get the green blinky light, we're good to go, And in this case, I've got green blinky light, but just a little bit of something to go wrong with the way that this is, and you can see right there, I incurred enough loss. I think it's about neg 17 is when I start losing loss of pattern, neg 16. And this, once again, 100 meg data rate. So I'm going to quickly stop this test, and I don't want to save the file. And then as we're going through this, if you guys have any questions about how I'm setting these up, feel free to reach out. I'm going to go in and modify the structure, and I'm going to bump this up to 1 gig optical rate. And I'm going to do so as well on my far end device for that to come up and for me to get link again. All right, I have link now. We can see kind of immediately just by changing the data rate, you can see a difference in the loss there. I'm already up to 10 dB, and even just at this point, just kind of jostling the fiber, I can start to incur loss. Oh, right there, I barely even touched anything. And like I said, this, given that this case we're 2 miles from your CO, I think I would, on a pole or some aerial traffic or something like that, just the rattling around and movement of the fiber. Yeah, actually, hold on a second. Let me see if I can fix this. I've got link, but I don't even have traffic at a gig. hold on. Let's see what we can do here. Man, and there's like actually a pretty good example. I thought even at a gig we would start to see, we wouldn't see data loss without some kind of physical manipulation, but right there, just this big, make sure you guys can see it. My fiber pick here. Still working on this single macro band here. And looks like I'm gonna kind of have to either reburn or rebuild this case to get that traffic show up. We can stop. Don't really care about the report right now. There, my link level or power level is looking better. Maybe we can start this test again and see if we can actually get traffic to pass here. There we go. Oh, no. Now, I wonder how many folks have seen that before, where you get the green blinky light and then suddenly we get loss of signal. And once again, I didn't, as you saw, I didn't really do anything different. I tried to actually fix the issue, but I increased my data rate up to a gig. And the reason I bring this up is I see a lot of our customers that are going through these pains in the field right now. And what would have been okay last year, 5 years ago, because our 100 meg seemed like a pretty good, you're doing pretty good if you're in an area that had 100 meg download speeds. I remember having 300 meg just being like blown away at, oh wow, I can stream things with that, out off of 2 computers. That's awesome. Well, now everyone wants that gig data rate, and as we start changing out optics and changing equipment, start to see that we're getting failures of traffic and what have you. And all of this, the majority of the time, goes back to a failure of best practices on the layer 1 stuff. And that's where these kind of quote unquote gremlins really do start to rear their heads. The other one that's really, let me stop this guy. I was hoping that I will move back to 100 meg and see if we can actually get the same traffic here. Give me a moment. Just go in, we're going to modify the structure. So we're actually going to change the interface data rate. I'm not changing the optics. I'm just telling them the date that we're going to max out, or the rate that we're going to max out at. All right. Loss of link there for a second as everything changes over. I got my link back up. We can see that we're neg 1.6 versus I think it was neg 10 at a gig data rate. So obviously a difference right there. Go back to this. And actually, here's I wanted to stop. The other one that I see quite regularly, and just to see if I can get this to work. So here's my come in over here on the back side. Stand by. So you probably, how many times have you seen this? Or we'll do we'll clean this fiber with our shirt, which was commonplace, right? Not only 10 years ago. I mean, no one wants to admit it, but we all know that was taking place. So now I've really got some loss in there, high reflectance, and we'll shoot our test again. Oh, nice, I'm getting a pass. Oh, no, now I've got a fail, and went back to 100 meg data rate. I kind of sorted out my macro bin here, but as you guys just saw, I intentionally put a lot of dirt on this this particular connector here, which is the last one out of my feed, or the way I've got this fiber looped around here. So incurring a little bit more reflectance here at the end, and I'm not going to be able to get that to change. So let's see real quick. Let's take a look at that connector and see what it looked like. Let's move over here to Connector Max and my handy dandy scope, which turned off on me, of course, powered off. Just give me a second to get this connected while I'm pulling this fiber out. Okay, take a look at both of these. Make sure I'm connected to my scope. There we go. And I'm going to actually go ahead and turn on my VFL from within here. There we are. All right, so let's venture to see what this connector looks like. Oh yeah, that's a pretty good booger there. Not too bad, but you can see where those round parts, kind of this section here. Actually, I'll go ahead and take a capture. All of this, these round circles here, is dirt and coming from another connector. So it just kind of shows you, as you clean one side of the bulkhead, if you have put any dirt in there, then it's going to stay on that bulkhead and transfer back to the clean connector that you just put in. So not only do you have to worry about the CO side or the premise side of your bulkhead, you also need to be concerned with the other side. So I'm going to take another look at this guy. That's a lot better. Give it another clean just for good measure. And I'm just using my Fiber Clean wipes here, which I prefer for any jumpers and what have you. You can use your one click for the other side of the connector, which I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple passes. If you want to disassemble the bulkhead and use the fiber wipes on the backside, you know, that's acceptable as well. But generally, that's a little bit more of a difficult practice. This was my bottom. And let's take a look at this one. I bet you it's a little more than just a booger on it. Yeah, there, that's actually causing a lot of loss in the core. And as you can see, those round circles there, pretty good indicator of transference from one connector to the other. So I think that just that booger right there is what really caused that additional loss. Give this guy a nice cleaning. And yeah, that looks a lot better. And I'm just going to go ahead and clean this bulkhead as well. And while we're at it, we'll take a look at it. Yeah, I think that looks a lot better too. All right, we'll move back over. Okay, I've got link now, and let's see my losses. I'm gonna start this test again. All right, oh, no traffic. Now, let's just take this guy all the way out. Late. Open. Now, as you can see here, in some of the, and this is what I see pretty regularly. Oh, yeah, went right to fail, no traffic. Yeah, great. I see this a lot with our layer 2 and layer 3 techs. These are the tools that you have. You've got a BERT test of some sort, or you have a whiteout 1564, and you're not getting traffic, or you're seeing alarms and errors. So what are your thoughts on what you're doing here? Is you're just going to continue fighting yourself, trying to fix an issue, and then still having the same issue. Having your layer 1 tools, or knowing how to use those layer 1 tools, is really going to help speed up the troubleshooting process with obviously the layer 1 or the outside plant. Now, if you're in the CO environment, it's a little bit different scenario versus if you're in the outside plant. You're going to need an outside plant technician, obviously, out there doing this work. But some of the tools they can employ. I'm going to quickly switch back over, and I'm going to cut my light out so that we can run our, bring my quick little jumper over from my VFL, and we'll take a look at all of the fun loss that's on this little box of Gremlins. Sorry about the lighting, but I think this is the easiest way for my camera to pick it up. You can see, and let me know, Charlie, or anyone that's listening, if you can see this well enough or not. But you can see here, let me lift this guy back up. I'm getting VFL pretty high bends in these areas here. Obviously, where I had this splice kind of put in backwards and dressed in incorrectly, and causing that bend right there. And then we can see that there's a lot of, some loss in this splice right here. And not too bad in the fiber that I've got running around here. But realistically, I'm just kind of looking at, where I can find light and where I can kind of smooth out as many of these bends as I can, and or fix any of the splices that might be in place. Now, this is a pretty rudimentary tool, and I'm basically right next to a bulkhead where I can bring red light in. So there's an advantage there versus if you're 10 miles away from that connector and you're trying to put VFL on it, you're not going to be as successful. But just being able to get some light in the case and see where I do have potential loss. And of course, I've got everything spliced back to itself and a lot of fiber looped in here, so it's not going to be very exactly representative of what we would find in an actual splice case. But I thought it was a good example to see why I'm having issues with even getting this same BERT test, where right there at the beginning no issues, and then as soon as I moved into trying to fix this macro bend, we started seeing a little bit more issue. Let's see if I can get my light back. There we go. It's a little bit better. And we'll start the test again. Yeah, right from the beginning, loss of signal. Oh, don't have my link, of course. we go. Ah, wonderful. So, we can continue doing this all day, as you guys, I'm sure many of you have done. It's a real pain in the neck to trying to continue fiddling with these guys. And then, one thing to note as well, the distance issue that I talked about earlier. These splices would be separated, obviously, by quite a bit of difference or distance between them. I've got maybe 50 to 100 feet between each splice. But I just kind of wanted to, and for just kind of highlight that, yes, the guys that are in the field are, even though you're running a BERT test in the CO and you've got no traffic and it's very frustrating, there's not much you can do. The guys on the other end of that, out in the field, their tools are VFL, or if they're doing right, they've got an OTDR, maybe with the IOLM technology on it, and it's able to identify their splices and high loss events. We're gonna run an IOLM test on this little Gremlin box here and see what it comes up with as well. But like I said, these are just, as we start moving up in speeds, these issues, these layer 1 issues, are going to start to become more apparent, and we're going to spend a lot of time troubleshooting them. So the big takeaway there is we want to employ best practices especially with any of the new fiber to the home deployments. It may not seem like, we have quite a bit of lost budget for these deployments, but the more mistakes or the more poor practices or poor workmanship that we add to that network, the bigger of a hit on our loss budget. And you may not see it when your customer is serviced at 100 meg or 500 meg, but when they get those new 4K TVs for Christmas and decide that they need a gig service, or if you're deploying a gig service immediately, this is where we're going to start running into bigger issues. So with the layer 1 or the layer 1 testing we can do, I'm just going to close this up real quick and stop this test, because we're not going to get any more information out of a BERT test here other than that we're just regularly failing. And I'm going to move over to, actually I'm going to close out the NetBlazer software and bring up my IOLM software. And if for any of you guys that are curious about this, this is one way that I really like to work with my FTB1, because if you're in a CO environment or some environment like that where you have a workstation close by, you can connect into your network and then just run a remote desktop. This also works really well if you're just trying to get information off of your FTB or off of your Max tester, just to put it on the network and then pull that data over to a shared folder or something along those lines. So it's just another way that we can use the FTB1 Pro or FTB2, what have you. So I've got my launch fiber already calibrated, and it's right here. Now, give me just a moment. Just for demonstration purposes, I'm actually just going to put a quick loop, hard loop on this fiber so that I can run it all as one link. And where's my handy little launch cable? And since we're talking about best practices, anytime I want to put my launch cable into a port that is unknown or we haven't been working on, I want to scope the launch cable itself. Looks pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and Go to this port. I can get her in there. Of course, I got my tip in the wrong orientation. Gotta love when that happens. One more try. Is it going to be in there? I got my bulkhead inserted backwards. And another quality issue that I'm fighting with. Here it is. Well, all right. Looks like everything's gone on that end. Well, back over here to IOLM, got 1310, 1550 selected. So we'll be able to, oh, and actually, I believe Tammy probably went over this when we did the IOLM versus OTDR. But one step that I forgot to take with IOLM, I want to look at my test configuration. Now, typically, I would either have a PON with a splitter configuration or maybe a point-to-point with two connectors, a custom pass-fail thresholds. For this particular setup, I know that I've got very close events in this little case here. So I'm going to run a short links close events, which is two connectors with my pass-fail thresholds. And make sure that that's set up correctly. And then we'll just go ahead and start Opti mode and let it run through. It gives me enough time to take a coffee break. All right. Now, the thing that I always remind folks of with IOLM, it does take a little bit longer than OTDR in a single shot. So if I want to do a single OTDR shot, and I'm in a scenario where I have 3 or 4 miles of cable with two connectors and a couple splices, OTDR probably going to be faster than IOLM, but we're not often given that scenario. A lot of times we have some closely spaced events near the beginning of the network, a lot of fiber between HUT or remote, and then some closely spaced events in that remote location, then a bit more fiber. So we're kind of regularly especially with fiber to the home deployments, we're seeing not these, standard, what we would be a transport or backhaul, long distances, few events. We're starting to see now events that are closely spaced and separated by lengths of fiber. And that's where IOLM really shows its benefit, because even though it took me a little bit longer to perform this trace, I feel a little bit more confident in the information it's given me. So because I've got such high loss events here between 100 and about 100 feet out, 124 feet out, it tells me that these are probably, let's see, yeah, I've got some, this is telling me that it's probably a bad splice. It could also be a low reflectance APC connector. So now a standard outside plant setup, it'd probably be a little bit easier to identify where 108 feet is versus 124 feet. However, as you can see in my little gremlin box here, is basically all in this box. So that's why that VFL was actually pretty effective in being able to show us where all of that, and I believe that first 108 feet is going to be right at this splice or the next splice, but they're really closely spaced together, so it's going to be hard to differentiate the two until I get rid of this high loss event early in the fiber shot. So if I reburn, right, or identify this specific either connector or splice. And I've gone in and scoped all my connectors and cleaned them. So I feel pretty confident about it not being a low reflectance APC connector. When I threw the red light on there, I could see this splice, you know, was lighting up. So it's a good indicator that we've got a you know, bad high loss here. And then also coupled with, you know, some of the macro bends and poor management inside the box, that's all gonna compile together to cause this kind of higher loss event here. So first thing I've got to do is address this guy and then rerun the test and see if I can separate out this 20 or so feet and see if there's any events there or if that macro bend is going to show up. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and put the macro bend back in here the way I had it and rerun that test so we'll see a difference in what IOLM tells us. Let's start Opti mode again. And right about here is where that bad bend is. And with IOLM, there is a progress bar down here in the lower right-hand corner that tells me the wavelength and how much longer we're working on that particular wavelength. As you see, you know, events pop up, things change. You know, you might be, oh, we've moved over to 1310, so we might be a little bit, yeah. So even just moving that splice over, you can see now how much loss I have. And if it's running 1310, I'm going to imagine that we're going to see that macro bend. And then all of the events after that are not going to be accurate until we address the first one. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even seeing past this 105 feet. So go in, do a little bit more physical manipulation, try and get some of this bend out, and then take another look at it. And, you know, don't intend to bore you guys to death with troubleshooting and going back and forth. I just kind of wanted to really relay the differences or the struggles that each side of the house is going through. You know, banging your head against the wall, running a BERT test over and over, or doing a YDOT 1564 and having issues. And there's, you know, with a 1564, if you're using a dual test setup, you're going to see both sides, your send and receive. So that's that's beneficial. So you can at least, you know, identify whether it's going to be the send or the receive leg that's seeing a lot of the frame loss or the loss of traffic. And that'll at least say, okay, fiber A or fiber B or what have you. But beyond that, you start to get limited in your resources, and then you're just kicking back down to the technician and saying, hey, we've got, oh, there's my macro bin that showed up. You know, we've got a bad splice or we've got an issue out in the field. And that's when you guys in the field would go out, and either you're going to go out to the splice case, open it up, throw some red light on there and see it light up everywhere, cherry red, and start looking at those issues, start reburning things. Or you can go and actually shoot it with IOLM and get a better understanding of what may be going on. You know, right here, that macro or that macro bend that's been causing me a lot of troubles right before or right around that bad splice. You know, IOLM is going to let us know, hey, we need to fix this macro bend first. Then let's look on. It looks like I've got, you know, a decent splice out at 100 and, you know, another 30 feet out, and then a decent amount of fiber till I get to the out port, basically. But addressing those is going to, once we get all of this sorted out, and I'm not going to be able to do that in the time period that we have, but we can go, let's see if that'll fix it. Just to save us a little bit of time, I'm going to stop the IOLM and move back over to our BERT test on the NetBlazer. Take me a moment to start up there. While I'm waiting for my software to start back up, anyone have any questions about what we're going through here, or have any scenarios that you have come across that are similar to this, where you're kind of seeing the information from two different sides of the house and trying to work together to get the network operating at the expected rates, especially as you start turning up rates. Are you guys seeing this in the field? And you can, feel free to unmute if you want to discuss it, or you can bring it right into the chat box. We've got that open and monitored. But any of you folks out there seeing this type of thing happen, where you're going from 100 meg up to a gig, and now you're chasing problems that were started maybe 10 years ago? And hands raised, or yeah, hey, that's what we're going through as well. Oh, get back to ILM. And I reverse engineer my little network, or kind of revert back to where we were at the beginning, and see if I can actually get 100 meg through here. There we go. Making sure everything looks pretty good, no big boogers anywhere. I'll clean that guy up a little bit. See, I'm still getting some transference from one bulkhead, or one side of the bulkhead to the other as well. It's pretty good. Big money, no whammies. We got link. Looks like we're good there. Let's see if we can at least get some traffic to stay. Big money, no whammies. All right, looks like at least fix the problem for up to 100 meg. So, any questions thus far, guys? I'm sure this isn't real news to anyone. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of take a moment with a little holiday themed Gremlins box here, and just highlight, we see it, I get to see it from an outside perspective, looking at organizations that are, separated by outside plant and inside plant, and some of the struggles you guys are going through as you start to move into these higher speeds, and what I wanted to highlight is make sure you have the right tools. That's going to really help to speed up the process. And then also understand that the actions that you're taking in the field or in the CO are having some impact on what's going on the other side. So if you're in the CO and you start moving, changing speeds or moving some things around, you're probably going to need support from your outside plant techs to make sure that that link is sufficient. If you're starting to get errors, or losing traffic, we may, in the case that I showed earlier, actually have link, actually be able to have the equipment talk to each other, but when we're passing traffic, these high loss events or dirty connectors or what have you are really going to start to rear their ugly heads, for lack of a better euphemism there. So I think that was the majority of what I wanted to go over today, and just wanted to open it up for any questions or comments from any of you guys. Any questions on the tool usage or the software in NetBlazer or in the OTDR, the IOLM, or anything along those lines? Well, Charlie, did you have anything to add, sir?
No, I think wanted to say thank you. I think you did gave some great information here. And again, if any questions come up, please feel free to reach out to either Eric or myself, or if you know Buck, he's always available too. But at this point, if nobody has any other questions, any other things you wanted to say?
No, like I said, learning to utilize the tools that you have available and or what tools are out there to really kind of make this process a little easier. And then, just really coming at the problem with some empathy towards the folks that are maybe on the other side of the table and saying, hey man, I got a little better idea of what you're dealing with or what resources you do or don't have. Let's work together to make sure that we can get a functioning and state-of-the-art, top-notch network that we're going to deliver to our customers. And ultimately, that's what we're here for, is to help you guys through that process. And if you have any questions or need any training or looking at any specific tools, whether it be a full OTDR with IOLM or one of our new OX1s for the guys doing field deployment, we're here to help you. So have a great new year and hope everyone had a great holiday. Let's keep the gremlins at bay in 2021. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. We'll send out an email to you here a little bit later today with the recording and any other information that might be pertinent for your review. Thank you and have a good day.